back to the paper for the research design. This study takes the form of a large N quantitative survey. What does that mean? Well, the quantitative part means we're dealing with numbers. The large N, lots of them. The unit of analysis is the country year. Now, that's interesting. It means we need to know two more things: which countries and which years. If we skip down the paragraph a bit, we see that it's all sovereign states in the international system and all politically dependent areas, colonies, occupied territories and dependencies for the whole period 1950 to 2000. So it's all states in the world plus territories which may not have been recognised as states as they were colonies. So let's pick one state and 1 year. France, 1990. That's one unit of analysis. Another unit of analysis is France, 1991. Then another unit is France, 1992. Similarly, Spain, 1990 is one unit, as is Spain, 1991, and so on. Now, let's carry on. The dependent variable is armed conflict onset. Variables can be either dependent or independent. If a variable is dependent, it means it depends on something else. We can only ever look at one dependent variable at a time, but we can look at multiple independent variables. A nice and easy pair of variables to consider is height and age. We would consider height to be the dependent variable and age to be the independent variable. Your height depends on your age, but your height isn't just dependent on your age. There are other potential independent variables such as how much fruit you eat, how much exercise you do, whether you smoke, and so on. So height would be the dependent variable and the independent variables would be age, fruit consumption, amount of exercise, and whether you smoke. So height can be a dependent variable, height depends on something else, but the dependent variable that Henrik is looking at is armed conflict onset. Now, in this research design section, Henrik doesn't tell us straight away how armed conflict onset is defined. That comes in the next section and the next video. But for now, I'll say this: conflict can mean war, and conflict can mean things that are smaller than war. The next word Henrik uses is onset. What he means is, did a conflict start? The article goes on, with a dichotomous dependent variable, the dichotomous bit means something's true or false, yes or no, something did happen or didn't happen, there's no grey area. It's also known as a binary or a dummy variable. So dichotomous variables, binary variables, dummy variables, all the same thing. It means true or false, yes or no. And the way we write them down is always the same. 1 means yes, 0 means no. Always. 1 for yes, 0 for no. So we know that the unit of analysis is the country year, and we know that the dependent variable is conflict onset, and we know that conflict onset is dichotomous. It happened or it didn't happen. So we can make a list based on these things. Okay, let's build an imaginary data set with some fake data. Our unit of analysis is country year, so we'll have France 1990 as our first unit of analysis, France 91 as our second, 92 as our third, and so on. For each of those, we'll give a 0 or a 1 for a conflict onset, meaning did a conflict start? Did a conflict start in France in 90? Let's say no, so we give it 0. France 91? Say no. 92? Yeah, we'll give that a 1. Then when you've done all the years for France, you do the same for Spain and all the other countries. That's all very interesting, but that's just our dependent variable, conflict onset. We know that conflict depends on something else. We can't do anything with these conflict data until we have some other data to look at. Well, as this paper is about population growth, we can put in population growth as an independent variable. So let's add in population growth rates for France and Spain for each of those years. Once we've got that and some other variables too, say GDP, infant mortality, unemployment rates, you name it, we can start looking for a relationship. But how? Well, the paper tells us how. It continues. With a dichotomous dependent variable, logistic regression is chosen as the statistical method. The logic model is specified as, oh my God, what the hell is that? Deep breath. Be calm. I'm going to explain it and you're going to understand it. In fact, we don't even need the calculus. We'll come back to the model in a minute. First, let's look at the next bit of the paper.